All right, we'll start with Alex Bozich.
Hey, Coach, thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Just curious. I was looking through kind of your coaching profile over on Ken Palm, and the offensive rebounding percentage kind of caught my eye midway through your tenure at Drake. You had some years where I think you guys were top third in the country in offensive rebounding percentage, and then the last 3 years kind of in the bottom third. I'm just curious your philosophy on that and how kind of you view the risk reward of crashing the offensive glass and how much that's based on the personnel you have.
Yeah, we would love to be a great offensive rebounding team. That's something that if you can get extra opportunities, obviously that's a big advantage. A lot of that's been based on just a little bit of our personnel of the type of lineups we had out there. What we thought and prioritized for our team every year was a little bit different. So I would say on the pecking order, we prioritize a couple other things more than offensive rebounding. But again, it's mostly just based on kind of our personnel and what we think we can be good at and kind of play off of that.
Daniel and then Mike.
Yeah, Coach. Last time we saw y'all in live action was obviously against Mega. Handful of it was like what, August 11th, 12th. Just in that time span, where have you seen y'all grow, and just what are you expecting us to kind of see and learn that's maybe improved these last handful of months?
I think the biggest thing is just defensively. I think we've gotten a lot more connected from our trip to Puerto Rico. You can just see it in the way we are a lot more aggressive, more attacking, as we understand positioning and where we're supposed to be a little bit better. So we're not, half a count late maybe to stuff like we were in the summertime. So I think that part's been really good. And then our ball movement and kind of the crispness there has been good. The other day, we're charting live 5-on-5. I think we had a day like this early in the summer, but yesterday we had 31 assists and 3 turnovers in our practice. So that just tells you a little bit about what we're doing on the offensive end in terms of the way we move the ball and things. So kind of excited about where we've made progress at both ends of the floor, but those are kind of the two main areas.
Schumann and then Niz.
Yeah, hey coach, I wanted to ask you about Nick Dorn. Curious if he was able to make it back to 5-on-5 this week and kind of what your expectations are for him for these 2 exhibitions coming up.
Yeah, he's starting to work his way back into some action. We don't anticipate him playing any tomorrow night. The Baylor game, I would probably say doubtful as well. We'll see where that leads. But we're certainly getting closer to getting him to full practice type stuff. But we still got a little bit of time to go there yet.
Niz and then Ravi.
Yeah, Coach. The last couple of years, you've gone through similar rebuilds with having to replace a lot of players. Is there something you learned in the last couple of years for how to structure kind of like the preseason practices? I know your plan's the plan, but anything that you have to emphasize or versus early in your career when you maybe didn't have the kind of turnover you had?
Yeah, I think the hardest part is just you got to get in the summer. You have to let kind of the roles play out a little bit because you don't want to limit guys either. You want them to everybody to kind of figure out what they're good at from a coaching staff standpoint too. Just how can we best utilize this group and maximize all the individual potentials along with us as a group and then kind of working off of that. But I think the biggest thing is just again getting your guys connected on both ends of the floor so they're just learning how to play off of one another. So we do a little bit more for 5-on-5 in the summertime than maybe a lot of schools do. Now we've been lucky that we've had trips on the years where we've had a lot of new guys, so that's allowed us some extra practice time. It's allowed us a little more freedom to kind of do some installs and some things like that too. So you're able to kind of catch up with an entirely new group a little bit.
Ravi and then Pete.
Yeah, Coach, just want to get your thoughts. What are the main things you want to see on Friday? What would be a successful exhibition outside of just winning the game? What are things you look at and say, hey, I want us to do A, B, and C really well on Friday?
I think the number one thing, I just want us to play as hard as we can. That's number one. That's number one every single night that we go out there. Like, are we maxing out, at both ends of the floor on terms of our effort, our communication. And then B, just especially on the offensive end, just the unselfishness and the ball movement. I think that's going to be a big key for us to be effective as a unit because we don't have a lot of one-on-one guys. So we really rely on kind of that type of movement and actions and cutting and those type and screening to kind of generate some of those paint touches. And those are going to be critical for us on the offensive side.
Pete and then Trevor.
Yeah, hey Coach, what makes it special and unique to coach your son? And do you envision him years from now, hopefully, being a coach as well?
Yeah, I think what makes it so special is just you get to spend all that time or even see all the time he puts into getting ready for a practice, getting ready for a game, and that's the type of work that you see a lot of our guys. But when you get to see your own son do it and recognize how much he cares about and how passionate he is about the sport and wanting to be good, and then to see that work pay off for him out on the game floor, I think that's one of those unique and special things. And then I think you always talk about guys that when they retire from sports, the thing they miss the most is the locker room. So for me, just getting to be a part of that with him, whether it be road trips or meals and those type of things, in addition to all the game day experiences that we get to do. And then, I think I know he wants to coach when he's done. That's, I think, one of the things that, makes him kind of special as a player. Everybody talks about his shooting, but his feel and his IQ for the game, he just grew up around it. He's been, chasing, our teams around for a long, long time. And so he gets it and understands it, probably at a different level just because he's had, been almost force-fed it, for his entire life. But so I know that's something he certainly has an interest in whenever he's done playing.
Trevor and then Zach Osterman.
Hey, Darren, heading into the exhibition game with a whole new group, how much of your offense and defense do you have installed at this point? And how does it kind of compare to your first season, obviously, at West Virginia and Drake?
Yeah, for the most part, we have everything in. The offense and stuff we'll constantly add throughout the year, especially as we start to play games and see how guys or other teams are going to play us and guard us, and then try to make some adjustments off of that. Defensively, for the most part, have everything in. And, special situations is probably the thing that we're cleaning up the most now as we lead into these last couple weeks. But outside of that, like I said, on the defensive end, we don't get overcomplicated. We just want our guys to play fast, play physical, and then give in-game or pre-game type adjustments, game planning type things. But outside of that, it's all in. So now it's just getting better at it as we go along.
Zach and then Seth.
Hey, Darren, sorry to kind of jump in with another injury question, but I'm just curious, especially kind of from a point guard perspective, sort of where Alexa and Jason are, like if either one of them is maybe a little bit kind of closer, and how you balance that position while maybe a couple of the guys that you might look to at least sort of, absorb some of those minutes are out.
Yeah, that's unfortunately both those guys probably going to be out for a little while yet. So certainly not going to have them for the start of the season and probably a few weeks into it for sure, which does make it challenging. Those are two guys that we're counting on to hopefully give us some minutes and some depth, and so we got to be a little creative until the one or two of those guys get back and give us a little more flexibility with our lineups.
Seth and then Josh.
Hey, Darren, just wondering how, it's still early, obviously, but at this point, how good of an idea do you have right now about what your rotation will look like on a night-to-night basis? How many guys do you see yourself playing in a typical game? And then I guess what's your philosophy as far as, how far into the season do you try to trim that down?
Yeah, it's going to be challenging early just with Nick making his way back, how quickly he can get back kind of into that game conditioning, and then also just for us to get a little feel for, where to best utilize him and plug him in. And, the other two guys that, they're going to be a while. So then how quickly can they, just get thrown in there, and find their roles and be able to fit. So those are things that we don't know yet. Because of injuries, we're going to be a little bit limited on our depth right now. I anticipate it being 7 to 8 guys here early, and then as those guys start to come back, get more in that 8, 9, and maybe even 10 on certain nights. From a depth standpoint.
Josh and then Zion.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask about Tayton. We saw in Puerto Rico and over the summer how he kind of wrecked the game and was able to turn defense into offense. How vital is he for the success of the offense as the season progresses?
Yeah, he's really critical for us, especially on the offensive end, because he's that one guy that we do have that can break the defense down. And, he has elite speed, be able to get in and get by people and then create, for himself and at the rim. So, we need him out there. We need him to be aggressive and making plays for us, because he is one of those guys that can free up, some of those shooters, and that's going to be a big part of our offense.
Zion and then Zach Browning.
Yeah, Darren, when you talk about your rotations and whatnot, and especially with the injuries right now, just how much do you anticipate you'll want to experiment in these 2 exhibition games, knowing that you kind of get right to it with that second game being the Marquette game?
Yeah, we'll experiment some, and we've been doing a lot of it in practice. For exhibition games, you probably aren't, especially on the offensive end, aren't going to show a lot. Even though we want to win the games, we also understand that the regular season games are more of a priority to us. So these preseason games, it's going to be on the offensive end more about just us kind of functioning with some of our motion. Defensively, we'll be able to do some things and try some different things. But we can also experiment with some lineups, as we are a little shorthanded, so it's going to almost force us to kind of look at some things like we've been doing in practice. And I've liked some of the things that, we've been forced to look at. So maybe it opened our eyes to a couple of different types of lineups that maybe we can utilize as the season, starts to get into November and December.
Zach and then Rick.
Hey, Coach, how much freedom do you want to give your bigger guys like Reed, like Sam, like Trent to push the ball in transition after missed baskets and off of defensive rebounds versus, getting that to a guard and having them push the tempo?
Yeah, both those guys have the freedom to do that. I think Reed's really, really one of those guys that we want to take advantage of his skill set. We want him bringing the ball in transition. It just creates such mismatch opportunities for us. When you got a center bringing the ball up the court, it's just not, common for defenses to have to get matched up that way. So a lot of times what you'll see is now the point guard may take him, and now everybody's, off in terms of like, hey, I was supposed to guard him, and they got to figure it out. And what we would love to happen is before they figure it out, we got something at the rim or 3 going up in the air. So we want those guys to grab it off the rim and push as much as possible, especially Reed.
Rick, and then we'll wrap with Alec.
Yeah, Coach, a little bit of an off-the-wall question, but the football team's become a national story and what they've achieved this year plus last year. Just in your time that you've been there, have you seen anything or learned anything from Coach Cignetti and what he does that is something that other coaches can hone in on?
Yeah, we haven't been able, like in the locker room or any of that, or at practices per se, but just when you listen to their team and how they talk, you can tell they're very engaged in prioritizing what they know is important. They don't turn the ball over; they prioritize that. They're very tough. They're very physical. They're very disciplined. I think it's all the things that translate to really in every sport, they're elite at, and that's something we talk to our guys about, and we've used football as a reference of this is why they're good. Part of the reason is here's what we see, and we're not football coaches, but this is why you win games in football. This is why you win games in basketball, and we got to be just as good in those areas, no matter what the sport is. But we want to be elite and not turning the ball over. We want to be elite in our discipline. We want to be elite in our toughness, and if we can do those things, then you're going to have a chance to win on most nights.
Last question, Alec.
To play a little bit more together, and more specifically, now that they've had more time on the floor, what do they provide from an offensive standpoint, being able to play off of each other for you guys?
Sorry, I missed the very first part you cut out on that.
Yeah, Sam and Reed, just
Okay.
what have they been like now, being able to spend a little bit more time on the floor together, and kind of what do they provide you guys offensively?
Yeah, they've been actually really good, and we've done that a lot more. We did it in Puerto Rico. And I like that lineup. We just weren't able to do it a lot in the summertime practice-wise because we didn't have the depth there. And unfortunately, we lost one of our other bigs, so it's It's been a little hard in practice sometimes to do it as much as we would like. It's also going to limit us a little bit during the year, potentially, on how much we can utilize the two of them together just because of lack of depth. But I do like that lineup. We want to utilize it, a decent amount, because I think it gives us just some extra size, for us to take advantage of. And Reed's so versatile in what he can do, that's, and he's so smart and moves and can play off the bounce. He's got good athleticism and speed. So it's something we're going to use and try to use as much as we can, whenever those opportunities come.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.